recording and transcription?
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I will let
Now
me
you see
know
it?
the participants.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Let's go. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone joining from the lobby. It's lovely that you're in the room with us. Thank you for waiting a minute. We were checking if our presentation would work and letting everyone join the session. So you will, for a couple of moments, probably hear the pling sound of the lobby. Please don't be disturbed by it. It's very, very nice to have you with us. Thank you so much for making the time this beautiful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We are basically connecting from all different parts in the world today. So thank you so much for making some time and being this important event with us. And also please excuse our cancellation last week. Even better that we can see you today, this evening. And also, maybe for the beginning, there's no need to be shy. I know sometimes we might be. If you can, maybe you want to turn your camera on and wave a quick hello so that we see who is in the room. Also, if you can't because you might experience some bandwidth troubles, we totally understand. No worries at all. Also, if you want to wave right now, you can also turn off the camera afterwards. So otherwise, it would be nice. Hello, everyone. Folks, my name is Annalena Finke, and for 3 years, I work as an Associate Human Resources Officer for ESCAP, which is the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. I came on board with the JPO program that our lovely New York team will tell you a bit later about. With me from ESCAP, I have my colleagues, Gabriela and Flavia from the innovation team. Many of you might already know them, I think. And our partners today, as the subject matter expert, we also have Christina, we also have Mahmoud, Nicholas, Sojourn, Amalia, and Andreina with us. They are our UN Secretariat specialists on how to build a UN career. And they will guide you through the many, many possibilities there are to build a career in an international organization. Since the UN system is so large, we will focus today on careers in the UN Secretariat. But do not worry, we also added some further resources for you to have a look at after the live session. Also, don't worry if you're not able to catch everything, we will share the key points with you later. So you can always revert to the session's material. And we will also record the session for you. In case you have a question, write it please in the chat box and our team will make sure to answer it. As for housekeeping, please make sure that you are muted when you don't have the floor. Always be respectful and kind with us as a group. Have fun. And now, next slide, please. Oh, no, sorry, previous slide. I saw that we are already on the APFSD slide. Okay, so I see, let me quickly look at the participant list. So I see we have participants from Thailand. I know we have participants from Hong Kong, from Indonesia, the Philippines, also Nepal, I think. So basically, we are having participants from the region from all over. And this is actually one of the reasons why I personally enjoy working with the UN. On a daily basis, I have the opportunity to work with colleagues from across the globe to collaborate on and advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So let's remind ourselves, why are we having this session today? I make it very bluntly because I work in HR. It is because we want to work with you. You have already shown to have the right mindset and dedication. You have already proven to be interested in taking matters into your own hands by either joining this year's youth event as a solutions creator, as a sessions participant, or as an ESCAP intern. The UN is super dedicated to have a highly skilled workforce that is adhering to principles of diversity at all levels, be it in gender, geographical representation, religion, race, ethnicity, ability, and many more. We really want to maintain and build our personnel with a wide range of skills and backgrounds. And since the UN system is very huge and has many different parts of the organization, there is a career stream for every profession you can think of. Also, in terms of experience level, there can be many different entry points, as our New York colleagues will inform you about in a bit. So I told you about why the UN wants to work with you as young and emerging talent. And actually, we already started the process by engaging with you during the APFSD Youth Event. So Gabi, would you mind explaining very quickly why ESCAP piloted a new way of how to engage with young changemakers? Over to you, Gabi, and next slide, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gabi, and I'm here today to give a brief overview of why and how we ended up here today. And Alina, Flavia, and I, along with other 10 colleagues, we formed the innovation team of ESCAP. Our team likes to bring different approaches to work and try out different things. And we were given the opportunity to organize the youth event as part of a major UN meeting called Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, APFSD. The UN organizes a lot of meetings. Our work is oftentimes to bring people to the same room to engage in discussions. And this was one of those meetings. So we, the innovation team, thought, how can we be innovative in a UN meeting and make it interesting to the youth to be involved? We reach out to our ESCAP interns who help us come up with the event concept. If it is an event for the youth, who better to advise on what is interesting and engaging to them, right? The event was to be a policy boot camp in which the youth would submit ideas to two policy puzzles related to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. The most innovative and feasible ideas were selected, and the youth were grouped in two teams to further develop their policy puzzle solution over a series of workshops with UN policy experts in these issues. Most important of all, the workshops were facilitated from start to finish by our own youth, our wonderful ESCAP interns. We had to develop solutions presented during the APFSD Youth Event. And as a reward to the participants of the event and the event's attendees, and to be able to continue to engage with the youth in Asia Pacific, we're offering now this session in partnership with colleagues of the UN Secretariat in New York. We want to know what the youth think. We want to learn from you. Youth are the present and also the future, and we want the youth to be part of the UN. So now you understand a little bit of our trajectory for those who did not participate in the events from the start to finish of the Policy Bootcamp and the guests. So now over with the introductions, and I will pass the floor to Andreina, who will come up to the juicy information we're all here for now on how to access career opportunities with the UN. Andreina, over to you.
Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm Andreina Boto. I work in human resources, in the Office of Human Resources based in New York. I'm today here with my amazing team that are going to be presenting all the entry points into the UN. They're going to be sharing their careers, how they got into the UN. I myself, I started my career 20 years ago as an intern. I applied for an internship with a fax machine. I had to send my application with a fax machine. I can imagine that none of you know what a fax machine looks like or use one. But yes, I'm very excited for today, for this event, for the partnership between New York and ESCAP. This is a great partnership, and we have a great event ahead of us. We're going to be presenting first the opening remarks from our youth envoy, the youngest at the highest level, and we have a special message from her. We're going to be having an overview on UN careers, And I'm going to be presenting you about our section. We do staffing, diversity, and outreach. We're going to have a conversation with the current ESO staff. That's my wonderful team. They're going to be sharing how they started their career. They are YPPs, JPOs, interns, and so on. Also, we're going to have an overview on all the UN careers and entry points in the UN. UMBs, JPO, YPP, internship, consultancies, and then we're going to open the floor for questions and answers. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we have Yayatma Vikranamayake. She is the youth envoy. She was appointed as the UN Secretary General's envoy on youth in June 2017 at the age of 26. She is the youngest senior official in the UN and the first woman to hold this position. In this role, she works to expand the UN's youth engagement and advocacy efforts across all the pillars of the organization. Let's listen to her.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I hope wherever you are in the world right now, you are safe and in good health and in good spirits. Firstly, I would like to thank the Office of Human Resources, the MSPC, for having me here today. More importantly, I would like to thank you for addressing the importance of equal opportunities in the UN's workforce and for making room to host this important discussion on the benefits and positive impact that diversifying the workforce will have on the United Nations as an organization. As you know, with the growing multidimensional challenges that our world is experiencing today, the United Nations is faced with greater responsibility every passing day. Our world is seeing challenges like never before, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the climate crisis to conflicts and wars, the economic crisis, all affecting people and the planet simultaneously. As a leading institution that has continuously worked for humanity, peace, and equality, the United Nations overall role will only become more relevant in being the global convener to deliver commitments and solutions. However, to overcome these challenges, we will not only need to strengthen global solidarity and multilateral partnerships, but we will also need to strengthen our delivery capacity through diverse perspectives and expertise. This is why our conversation today is extremely timely. As the UN Secretary General's envoy on youth, I strongly advocate for the recognition of young people's expertise, their innovation, and their creativity. The UN acknowledges this as well. Ever since the launch of the UN's first ever youth strategy, Youth 2030, in 2018, my office has coordinated and contributed to multiple interagency efforts to help the UN become a leading institution that supports youth leadership across the organization, as highlighted in the strategy's foundational areas. All over the world, young people have come up with innovative ideas to solve challenges in their communities. Even with limited resources, they come up with creative solutions, fresh approaches, and new strategies that could contribute to the efforts of achieving sustainable development goals. The key to why young people of today could come up with so many innovative solutions is not only because this is a generation of digital natives who are capable of having an exponential learning curve, but it is also because the young people of today understand how to transform their lived experiences and perspectives that come from their intersectional identities into ideas that address the needs of the most vulnerable communities. And this is exactly why the UN needs youth. For instance, it would be impossible to address the crises of today, such as the climate crisis, without having the generation that is most affected by this crisis take part in building recommendations, developing strategies and policies, and solutions to address it. This is, of course, one of the many examples of challenges in achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals on track and building a future that truly upholds the values of the UN. Young people are not short on ideas or solutions. They have consistently proven so outside of the UN's walls. And it is time to work together with young people, not only outside the UN, but also here inside of our institution. According to the Secretary General's report on UN Secretariat staff composition, out of the 36,827 staff in the Secretariat in 2020, less than 1,000 staff were young people under 30, and only 376 of them were young women. Moreover, the average age of a P2 staff position, an early entry position to the UN system, is 37.3 years, almost 40 years old. From the experience that I have gained through my work, I've also learned that many early entry staff positions are also more accessible to young talent through, for an example, programs like the JPO program that predominantly comes from developed countries. So there is a need to not only strengthen, but to diversify the young talent within our organization. If we want to harness youth potential and talent here inside the walls of the United Nations, more commitment and more collaboration are needed with and from member states. We are not short on evidence and case studies from around the world that highlight how the diversity of talent and intergenerational partnerships within own teams, within organizations, can help strengthen organizational performance. We are not on short on the supply of talent. Through my work, I've heard repeatedly from young people around the world that they are keen to contribute to the UN's work and join this institution. Even here in the UN, young staff are constantly voicing out the need for mobility and opportunities to contribute to different areas of UN's work. Projects such as Connecta, that is developed by Young UN, aims to pave the way for collaboration and skills sharing for staff around the world. And I'm glad today that this initiative will also be discussed as one of the potential aims to harness the potential of young staff within the organization. UN believes in engaging young people as equal partners, as highlighted in the youth strategy, and now it's time to translate that into concrete action. The Secretary General's Our Common Agenda also highlights the need for upgrading the United Nations by implementing a system-wide policy that puts people at the center, taking into account age, gender, and diversity. So I want to congratulate the interagency partnerships and collaboration that has been established and implemented to improve UN's work on youth workforce and also on internships to make it more accessible and make it more democratic for young people to work for the organization. And the various initiatives such as this roundtable that we are having today, the YPP program, fellowship programs, UN volunteer opportunities, and other initiatives, and also the active participation of interagency partners in the Youth 2030 task teams that looks at youth leadership and removing barriers. It is my great hope that through the conversations, knowledge sharing, and dialogues that are taking place in this roundtable, we will be able to come together collectively to develop strategies that will enable the United Nations to leverage on the strengths of today's young generation and come up with solutions that can reflect the real needs of current and future generations. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to listen to Yayadna always. We have been partnered with her, and it's really, really inspiring. It's so important to have a youth envoy in the UN because the future is the youth, right? So here we have the UN system. I don't want to overwhelm you with it. I just want to motivate you. meaning you have so many opportunities in the Secretariat. The Secretariat has 93 entities all over the world. So there are so many opportunities there. This is the UN system, as you can see. This is for the Secretariat, but you also have the agencies, funds, and programs, specialized agencies, right? But here today, we are to talk about the Secretariat. If you want, you can go to this link and visit this to get familiar on all the entities that we have in the Secretariat. As I said, they are 93. So I would invite you to go and get familiar with the UN system and start mapping where you would like to apply. Next slide. Here, this is the Staffing, Diversity, and Outreach section in New York. This is my team. The ESTOS is a subsection in the UN Secretariat in the Office of Human Resources. We focus on disability, sexual orientation, youth, multilingualism, ethnicity, and geodiversity, and gender identity. The D&I initiative and talent outreach support all the areas, including but not limited to nationals from all member states and ethnicities. Also is inclusive to all gender identities and sexual orientations, is inclusive of persons with disabilities, and inclusive of all ages, including and prioritizing youth. Multilingualism. English and French are the working language. Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian are other official languages. I am the focal point for multilingualism, and I have to ensure that all the outreach events that we do in multiple languages, that we hold meetings in different languages, and so on. For example, myself, I speak Spanish, English, German, Italian, French, and I use it on a daily basis in my work. Next slide. Here is my wonderful team, and I'm gonna give the mic to Cristina, my right hand and my best partner at work. Cristina, I pass you the mic. Thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, Andreina, for the wonderful quick introduction. We have a lot of information for you today, so no need to get overwhelmed in the introduction. Exactly like Andreina said, there's lots coming your way, including this wonderful, candid, open conversation with our team here. Like Andreina introduced, we are the Staffing, Diversity, and Outreach team. And I have 3 of my colleagues here who are from the Asia Pacific region and who would love to speak to you today about how they started their own careers in the UN. So we have Amelia, who's from Chengdu, China. We have Mahmoud from Western Asia, Syria. And we have Sejong, who's from the central part of South Korea. They are all very diverse in their backgrounds, and they're all very diverse in the way that they entered the UN system. So Amelia is our intern here on this section. Mahmoud is our YPP, and Sejong is a JPO. So very different experiences, a breadth of knowledge and advice and tips that you'll hear from them today. And I'm really, really excited for you all. This is a great opportunity. And my name is Cristina, like you heard. I'm also a YPP here. I'm from Romania, and I work with this wonderful team on diversity and outreach. And I'm so grateful to be here with you today. So without further ado, I see we have quite a nice audience, so let's not waste any time. I want to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. So all of you, we can go one by one. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, including, education and professional background, and what brought you to the United Nations in the first place? Let's see who would like to go first. I think I'll stop sharing my screen now so we can see your beautiful faces. And let's see, who'd like to tell us about themselves first? Amelia.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Cristina. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you today, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Amelia Tao. I have a dual bachelor's degree in political science and economics, and I'm currently finishing my master in public policy degree at the Harvard Kennedy School. I was born and raised in China and started my time here in the US since high school. I've had experience working both in the public and private sector, doing work related to South-South collaboration and also in venture capital. Why do I want to join the UN? I've always aspired to make a difference to the world, to do something that's impactful and meaningful, and that's why I'm here. Luckily, my education and background have equipped me with the skills to work in the UN, especially through classes and projects that help me familiarize with the UN processes, global governance, and through my passion about the environment, as well as research interests in the global clean energy transition. I really believe in the mandates of the UN, and as a world citizen with a global-oriented mindset, I think the UN is the best place for me to work with like-minded individuals and harness the ability to make a difference in a global, multicultural, and diverse way.
It's beautiful. We are very global and very multicultural, like you heard from Andreina. So definitely true. That resonates with me quite a bit, Amelia. I have a very similar, not a similar upbringing or, you know, the region where I came from, but a very similar kind of just intrinsic desire to make a change in the world. So thank you for sharing with us. Sejong, Mahmoud, would you like to go first?
Yeah.
I can go
Hello.
next.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can go ahead, Mahmoud.
Thank you so much, Christina. And actually, Amelia encouraged me to share also my experience, how I joined the UN. Honestly, guys, I now see myself back in the days when I was like you, participating in an event similar to this. But honestly, how I joined the UN, I think it goes back to my childhood, where like I experienced in Syria the injustice and inequality, especially with my mother in the hospital. We suffered from unequal treatment. And back then, I developed a vision to contribute to reduce inequality in the world. And after I became a refugee in Lebanon, this kind of vision increased until I got the opportunity in 2015. I participated in the United Nations model in ESCAP in Beirut. Something like stimulation for the official meeting between among the member states. And I represented Jordan back then. And I addressed the inequality and injustice in Jordan, and I won the best delegate in that event. And I was invited to make an internship in the United Nations. And it was the gate that led me into the United Nations, where I discovered how the United Nations work and how the values fits into my own. And my supervisor there advised me to apply to the program. I want to share more about it later, called United Nations Young Professional Program. So I applied in 2019, and I passed the exam in 2021. And 2 weeks ago, I joined the United Nations throughout this program. And as I promised, I will share more about this later with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud, for sharing your experience. Truly, truly inspiring. The journey you've been on and how far you've made it. And Sejong, would you like to close us off here with your introduction for the audience?
Yes, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm very glad to meet you in this wonderful APFSD Youth Forum hosted by ESCAP. My name is So Jong, and I'm a junior professional officer from Republic of Korea, working with these amazing colleagues. So as Mahmoud said, actually, my journey about my international career path has actually also started from my childhood. So I was born in 1992, and when I was 5 years old, in 1997 and 8, Korea was hit by a financial crisis, and everyone was talking about IMF. And that was the first time I've ever heard about the word international. And although I was just so little to understand what it actually means, I could understand that it was something helpful to my country in a difficult situation. And then 10 years later, in 2007, when I was in middle school, we had the first Korean UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and that was how I got to learn about the UN and the globalization and the multilateral cooperation. Since then, I dreamed to work for the UN, and I studied international relations and international development policy in my bachelor's and master's degrees. And you know that UN has two official languages, English and French. And at that time, I didn't speak any French. So with the hope of mastering French as much as I speak English, I went to France to do my second master's degree in a business school. And there I was really interested in human resource management. So I got to build my expertise in strategic human resource management and worked in one of the top global companies headquarters for over 3 years in Paris and in Shanghai. And having those dynamic experiences in different countries, I felt ready for a new challenge. I just found this JPO position last year. So I applied, and then I'm working here since February. So in the later session, I'm going to share you more about the JPO program.
Thank you so much, Sujong. You'll have to show us around Paris sometime. And I'm so grateful for all of you for applying and for being here with us. So, you know, I'm sure the audience can see themselves as, you know, you a few months or a few years ago applying, which is wonderful. That's the kind of, exactly the kind of vision we like to inspire here. So like everyone mentioned, the technical details on these programs and all the entry points will come a little bit later in our presentation. So, you know, don't feel like you were missing out on any of that. It's coming. We just wanted to give you an introduction to ourselves as people first, so you can have this kind of personal experience and this personal story too, to go along with all the technical details. So I'll take it to our next question for the panel. I think I'll ask this one of Mahmoud. If you don't mind, Mahmoud, could you tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you do now, that we all do actually in this section, and how does it fit within the larger United Nations organization? Mahmoud, over to you.
Let me start from the large framework of the United Nations. So mainly the United Nations has many objects, but most importantly is to establish and maintain peace in the world and to advance the life of humankind. And one way is to advance the life of humankind is to ensure equality and justice among them. And you know, in the United Nations, there are 193 member states, but not all of them are represented. Some of them non-represented in the United Nations, and some of them underrepresented. And in order to ensure we deliver the right outcome to this state, we have to ensure they have representation in the United Nations. So one of the tasks we are working here in our section, which called SDGs, Staffing, Diversity and Outreach section, is to reach and outreach to young and talent like you in these under and unrepresented country, in order to attract them to join the UN, so we can create a balance on the long run. Not only for the geo-representation goal we work also on gender parity to ensure a balance among men and women inside the United Nations. We can talk about ensuring inclusion inside the United Nations and many other goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the explanation. Beautiful and very straightforward. So that's exactly the kind of explanation, honestly, I needed when I was applying, because what's online out there can be a little bit overwhelming. So I hope, you know, if there's any other questions like that that we can answer and put them in a real clear and straightforward way for all of you, please leave them in the chat for us. I'm sure Mahmoud's nodding. I'm sure he'd love to answer some of your questions. Thank you. So now that we've spoken a little bit about what we do, I want to relate this back to, you know, a really big topic at the moment globally, and in your forum that you've all discussed in the events that you've had and the challenges and the cases that you've solved, and that's the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, right? So it's a really pertinent topic, and you can imagine, as the UN, all of our work here is somehow in some way or another informed by these targets that just kind of guide us in our work. So maybe I can ask Amelia to tell us a little bit more about how your current role and your responsibilities relate to these sustainable development goals. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So building on Mahmoud's point, as we all work very closely as a team, our work is very related to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, particularly towards Goal 5, achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls, and Goal 10, reducing inequalities within and among countries. These SDGs are reflected through our efforts in the implementation of the geographical representation strategy to attract a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce in the UN and across UN agencies, funds, and programs. There are also numerous other areas of diversity and inclusion initiatives that are our core focus, including disability inclusion, gender identity, sexual orientation, youth, multilingualism, and many more.
Definitely. Yep. You've heard about these and you will continue to hear about them because it is really important work. And we truly, truly believe in it. So thank you, Amelia, for connecting that for us. And now that we've spoken a little bit about our work, maybe we can move a little bit more into the behind the scenes of how we all got here, right? I think that's what everyone's here to learn about, right? So the hiring process and your experience with it. So maybe we can go even beyond that to what you were doing before, to your previous background and your professional experience before you joined the UN. And maybe I can ask Sujong to tell us, you know, how was your previous background? You said you worked in human resources for a top global company in Paris and Shanghai, right? If I'm not mistaken. So could you tell us a little bit more about how your previous work background is useful, you know, for your work in the UN system? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Christina. So before I joined the UN, actually my career has spanned a wide range of sectors. So not only in the private sector, but I actually started in an NGO, and I worked in there for a year. And then I also had worked for some government research institutes during my master's degree. I was on several short-term contracts. And then starting from France, I started building my career, my expertise in the HR management in the private sector for 3.5 years. So in the private sector, where I spent most of my career so far, I worked for the leadership development for top executives around the world and for organizational cultural transformation, partnering with different divisions. And in doing so, I built some transversal skills, such as working cross-culturally, project management, research, and data analysis that I'm actually currently using every day for my role in the UN. And most importantly, in the UN Secretariat, we work with 93 entities. And as someone mentioned before, we work with 193 member states, right? So for example, we provide diversity toolkit and action plans to our to hiring entities to achieve better diversity in recruiting new talents. So my previous experience of implementing international projects worldwide in collaboration with different divisions and local entities in 42 different countries is definitely helping me in serving my current role in the UN.
So cool. You started with 42 countries, but now you moved up to 193.
More than quadruple.
Very, very cool. And can you, for those of us that don't know, and I think myself included, can you, I have a little doubt, could you tell us what organizational change management is? I know you said you worked on that, but can you explain it to me as if I had no idea and I never worked in HR before?
Yes. So organizational cultural transformation
That's what it
is, yeah, it has one part in a transformation in the management side. So it was actually giving the guidance to the managers and leaders to be enablers. So we did some trainings and workshops, making action plans based on the staff engagement survey. Also, on the other hand, there was the whole rest of the organizational side, right? So because it's not only about managers, right? Of course, the top management's commitment really helped, but like it's all about the mindset, right? So, for example, like before there were meetings that are too long or like inefficient meetings, for example. And like we are discussing all together, like how we would like to make our meetings to be more efficient, to have more agile way of working, or how do we actually better cooperate across teams and within teams, and how do we make freedom within the frame, so that we are clear of where we're going, but we each of us are empowered to manage our projects, right? So those things are all in the organizational culture transformation. It was very exciting to work actually with everyone at all levels of the organization on this. Yeah.
That's so cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I can tell that experience really kind of is useful here, having been able to work with everyone at different levels and connect. Here in the UN, we are not just, very, very diverse culturally, but just we work on such a number of issues that it's very important to be able to create common ground and connect with others in other departments. We call them entities, just to make that clear. But yes, there are 93 of them, so you can imagine how hard that is. I think this question is very interesting, actually. Maybe someone else would like to comment too. Maybe Mahmoud, do you want to comment on your previous background and how it is useful for you here? Sorry, Mahmoud, I don't.
Actually, I will not go. Perfect. I will not go throughout my technical background. I want to share something else. Guys, the UN is big, so big, and to see your effect in this organization is not easy. And I want to share a small story. The first contact with the UN was in 2012 when I became a refugee in Lebanon, and I contacted some employees from the United Nations High Commission for Refugee. And it was an informal meeting, by the way. And we sat together and we talk, and they encouraged me the only way to get out of the bad situation is to continue my education. And I'm sharing this story just to tell you, you don't have to see the effect of your work to believe that it's important. And this story helped me a lot, because this guy from the UN, I'm sure they don't know me if I now meet with them, but they had effect on my life, and you see it now. So this is helping me now in the United Nations because it's so big, and honestly, I don't see like a direct effect. Now I'm not seeing like a direct effect of this meeting, but I'm sure many of you will get there. And remember me of that. Thank you.
The direct effect will be with when one of you starts working. Please feel free to email Mahmoud to tell him that he inspired you. Please. No, that's a really good point, Mahmoud. And I think we have a number of people that say the same. Actually, I met someone else the other day that went to one of our events, I think 6 or 7 years ago, and now works, I think, for Yunnan. So it does happen. It's just harder to see, I think, when we work on such a big scale. Sorry, Mahmoud, you have your hand up, right? So I'll pass it back to you. Or was that?
No, by mistake. I'm sorry, by mistake.
No problem. No problem. I think your story about meeting with someone who inspired you to begin your career in the UN system leads me directly into the next question. So do you mind keeping it going and telling us, the technical part of like, how did you begin your career, from application to, interview and selection? Can you tell us what that looked like for you, Mahmoud? We'll keep it going with you.
So you mean about the young professional program?
Yes, exactly. Or, just how, yeah, if that's how you came
so,
in. How did you...
So I'm telling you that I joined the United Nations throughout young professional program, but that does not mean it was the only way I got there. I tried like hundreds of times to get into the United Nations. I started by participating into model United Nations in Beirut, and then internship, and after that many trials to get into the United Nations, and I failed. Honestly, I failed to get there because the requirement of some experience that I didn't have. And in that moment, the supervisor in the internship I did told me, Mahmoud, you are Syrian, and now this program is open for the nationals from Syria, and you don't have to have experience. You just apply. And I applied, and I failed, by the way, in the first time. And in the next year, I couldn't apply because it wasn't open again for Syrian. And I waited to the next year. So I reapplied again in 2019. And it was supposedly, as you know, Christina, 1 year to pass the examination. But because of COVID, it took 2 years until everything was completed in the examination process. And the result was announced at the late of 2021. So you need first of all like a determination to get there, and just keep trying. Maybe something like you always hear, but from my experience is true. You wanna keep trying until you get where you want. Even if you don't want to join the UN, anything in your mind, if you wanna get it, you have to keep trying to get it.
Thank you. Yeah, you would not believe how common of a story that is. I hear it from everybody. And you all met Andreina at the beginning. She's an inspiration for us on the team. And something that she always says is, you have to always look for the 99 no's so that you can finally arrive at the one yes. So that's not to discourage you. That's just to say, apply, apply, apply. It's not, it's just a numbers game sometimes. So don't feel defeated, exactly like Mahmoud said. And that was a similar experience for me as well. And I think many more people can relate. I see Annalena put it in the chat as well that she relates. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I think Sujong, I saw your hand going up. It was a mistake. Well, that gives me an opportunity to move to you and ask you to tell us about your application process and selection. You joined through the Junior Professional Officer Program, so a little bit different from Mahmoud's Young Professional program.
So the Junior Professional Officer Program is a great opportunity for the youth, generally under 32 years old. So it's the same as what PP in terms of the age limit, but the big difference is that JPOs are sponsored by their own government. So I found the JPO post on the website of the Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I also attended a career fair organized by MOFA, and that was actually where I first saw my current supervisor and our current chief of service, who shared different entry points that we are presenting you today. So, and there was also a mock interview during this career fair as well. So I could see how the competency-based interview can be done. And so I submitted the application through Inspira, and about 2 months, in about 2 months, I got shortlisted by my hiring entity, and I had a short, quick interview with the MOFA in Korean, because Korean government thinks that it's also very important that we also can speak Korean because it's the specificity of JPO program is that like you are working for the UN, but you are funded by your government, so you have this link, right? So and then I had the famous CBI, the competency-based interview with the chief of section. So the interview was about 1 hour, and I was asked to answer the questions using the CARL format. So CARL is context, action, result, and learning. So for every action I did, I had to also explain so what outcome I had and what I learned from it, right? So after the final interview, it took me another like a month and a half to get the final result and the offer letter. And another thing that's different from YPP is that for JPO, as soon as you are selected, you actually come to work directly. So within several months. So it's not like being registered in the roster. So you have direct access to the hiring entity. But JPO is a fixed term. So you after the 2 years of your contract, you will have to look for different opportunities within the UN and apply by yourself.
Thank you, Sejong. Thank you. Yes. And the CARL method, for those of you who are not familiar, that's a very, very big tip here to learn kind of to interview and give your answers in an interview in that format. Sometimes they also call it the STAR method. It's situation, task, action, and result, I think. So basically set the scene of what happened, describe what the task you had to do, explain what you did. So that's the A, the action, and then result, share the outcome of your actions. So the STAR method or CARL method, however you want to learn it, it's a very good way to interview, I would say, in the UN. And yeah, go ahead, Sejong. I see you unmuted.
Yeah, so actually you can find some resources on the UN HR portal about the competency-based interview. So please use those resources as much as possible. You can also find a lot of video on YouTube on how to prepare for your answers in the CARL format. So yes.
Yeah, maybe we can drop the link in the chat to the HR portal there for anyone who doesn't know it yet. Perfect. Thank you so much. And Alina was so fast. So thank you. Thank you. I think maybe we can hear from Amelia to round us out on how you started. And I know Amelia is an intern with us, so she didn't come in through a program, right, Amelia, but through the internship option rather. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm interning with the Secretariat at SDGs with the Office of Human Resource, and this is directly through the application of the JO, which will be advertising later today through our presentation. So please stay tuned for the information, and you're all very, very encouraged to apply. The process is pretty simple. It's just involved with writing and submitting the application over Inspire, the UN application site, and then interviewing with the team, followed by some anxious moments of waiting to hear back and eventually receiving my internship offer.
Thank you for that answer. And this kind of brings me to the next natural point. I think some of you have already started talking about it. It's about, tips or advice on that you could give our listeners on what helped you get here. I know Sejong mentioned the Carl example and the YouTube videos, you could watch to see how to interview that way. So that's a good tip, I think. But I just wanted to open up the floor a little more if you have any other tips that you want to give our listeners right away so that they can take note. And feel free to shout out. I mean, I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but I'm sure you have. Well, there you go.
I'd like to say more in general, just be open to all possibilities. So as you heard, I was not a typical UN candidate who have at least one prior experience in the UN system, such as UN internship or UNV, right? So I guess some of you might hooray from hearing this because you might not also have a prior experience, right? So if you don't know where to start, I think it's a great way to start with the UN internship or UNV to understand the UN system. But again, it's not the only way, right? So you can also build your expertise in a specific area. And then in my case, it was HR. And you can contribute to the UN with your own experiences.
Thank you, Sejong. Mahmoud, would you like to give us some of your tips?
Yeah, I just shared a simple screenshot. The mock interviews I did while I prepared for the competency-based interview. So even if you don't know it or new to it, just prepare and believe in yourself. From my experience, I didn't apply to the UN because I was afraid, like all of them in informal suits and like master degrees and smart people. So I thought, where I'm going, it's so hard. But until I went to the UN throughout the internship, and I discovered they are human like us. Only maybe they have like they believe in themselves, they have determination. So my tip is general. Just believe in yourself and keep trying, and don't hesitate to ask. And that's why the internship is so important in the UN, because you will meet with colleagues that will advise you how to apply and certain tips inside the department. And for example, the supervisor in the internship, as I said, was who introduced the young professional program to me. I wasn't aware, and I'm sure there are many opportunities I don't know about it. So the more you connect with people inside the organization, the more likely you will get more opportunity there. Thank you.
Yes, that's a really, really great point. Honestly, even when you have already started your career, like for example, I know for myself, I'm at a very early stage in my career, so it's really important for me to keep connecting with people, keep exploring, keep asking them, having mentors, asking them, what do you like about what you do? What don't you like? Could I see myself in your role in one day, you know? So it's very, very helpful, even beyond applying. I think it's just a mindset that it really helps if you get in that mindset when you're, you know, when you're at the beginning of the road, like we have been, because then you keep that framework for the rest of your life, and you keep developing amazing relationships and networks. So thank you, Mahmoud. That's great. Amelia, over to you. What's your tip for applying?
Yeah, something I really want to share from my personal perspective and what I benefited a lot from is the importance of time management and staying on top of your schedule. So there's a metaphor that I really resonate with. It's also a Chinese metaphor that says that time acts like a sponge when you think you're running out of it. But you can always actually squeeze out more from it if you try enough and smartly manage your time. So this also directly points to how hard work will eventually pay off from time management, and also just trying to do as much as you can from the limited time we all have in our period of life. And another thing I want to flag is the importance of networking and attending career events, because this is exactly how I discovered my current internship opportunity with the Secretariat at a university career event. So there are always numerous opportunities out there, and to fight for it, the best ways will be being proactive and also utilizing the resources that are the most surrounding and close to you.
Thank you, thank you. Really, really good advice here. And I love that saying about the sponge. I'm going to keep that in mind for a long time. That's a very good point. So thank you for sharing, Amelia. And I think we're coming close to the end of our scheduled time for the panel discussion. We're doing really well on time, I think. We definitely want to leave some room for that presentation on the entry point so that you all can have some technical background on how to apply, right? So I think we'll call it here, but this is not the last time you're hearing from Mahmoud, Sujong, and Amelia. You're going to see them come back in to tell you about their respective programs and how they joined from a technical standpoint. If you have any questions, maybe something that you were hoping that they answered and that they would answer and they haven't, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to ask them any questions later on in our Q&A portion. So we will save time for some Q&A too. Keep that in mind. So before we go next, let me, oops, sorry about that. Let me share my PowerPoint here with you because we're going into some really interesting slides. So before we go into each program on its own, let's first look a little bit at an overview of the job entry points and the job families in the UN for any of you who are not familiar. So of course we have job openings, you know, the regular kind of job openings like any other private company or organization might have. But we also have internships, right? Amelia spoke about that. We also have very specific programs that you can enter through. So that's the Young Professional Program, which you'll hear us refer to as YPP. Myself and Mahmoud are YPPs, so feel free to ask us your questions about that. We have the Junior Professional Officer Program, which you'll hear us refer to as the JPO program, and that's Sujong on our team, so feel free to ask your questions and direct them to her. And then we'll also cover two new areas that you haven't yet heard about: consultancies and the UN Volunteers Program, which, if I may give you a spoiler, it's not unpaid. It's actually comes with pay and benefits. So not sure how many of you knew that. I didn't before joining the UN. So definitely want to make sure demystify this whole world for you. So on the right, you'll see the job families that you may apply into based on your passions and your, professional experience and education. And I won't go through all of them. You will receive this presentation, so don't feel like you have to, jot down anything right now. You'll have all this material after the session. And then in the lower left-hand corner, we included a sample kind of career level linked to the years of experience so that you can sort of get an idea of when you look at job openings on our career portal, you will see them labeled as a P1, P2, P3, P4, right? All the way up to D1 and D2, which are director level positions. And each of these positions will be somewhere around up or down those years of experience that you see there. For example, for a P2, they usually ask for 2 years of experience. For a P3, 5 years, and so on and so forth. And it does change a little bit depending on your education, right? Your the minimum number of relevant years of work experience, they change whether you have a master's or just a bachelor, right? So if you just have a bachelor, an additional 2 years of relevant work experience will usually be required. If you have a master, then, and you apply for a P2, for example, you just need 2 more years of work experience. You're in that lower, the lowest rung there, where, a lot of us entry-level young folks are. So just keep in mind that your work experience should be relevant to the position or, the program that you're applying to. And by that, I mean these areas on the right side. So that's just a very quick overview. And so now let's kind of start going through our entry points so you can hear more about them. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Nicholas, who you haven't heard from yet. And I'll ask him to introduce himself because he'll be speaking to us about internships.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, Christina, for the great overview. And hello to all of you guys, wherever you might be sitting right now. Before really jumping into the interviews, as Christina mentioned, I just want to quickly introduce myself. So my name is Nicholas Lai. I'm originally from Munich, so I'm a fellow European citizen. And I did also my undergrad there, since the question was already asked in the chat. And I'm currently in New York. I'm doing my Master of Science and Technology Management at Columbia University. So also a totally different world. And I joined the UN and this fantastic team in January this year. So I've been part of the team now for 5 months, and it has been great, that's for sure. And before we go more into the more administrative aspects and the very important information also for you, we would like to start off with a quick video that shows you more on what is a typical, let's say, motivation for joining the UN as an intern. And Christina, feel free to start the video at any time.
Thank you, Nicholas. Could you confirm whether you hear the sound or not? Is there sound on your end?
I don't think right now. Maybe let's try again. I know
No,
the music is coming in a second.
I think it's because I have to share it with sound. Apologies, everyone. Technology is there we go. So now I think it should be with sound. Oh boy. We'll have to go through them. I'm so sorry.
Of course.
There we go. So let me know if you can hear the sound now.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I applied because my background is in medicine. I'm a physician from India, and working in the medical services division at the United Nations was a very intriguing opportunity for me.
I applied to an internship at the United Nations because it's always been a dream of mine, and one of my aspirations is actually to work within politics in some kind of capacity. So this was a good start.
I want to work at international organization, non-profit, and social enterprise, utilizing the skill set I learned here.
On a daily basis, I actually work on data analysis and data visualization on Power BI, which is a very powerful tool. that I've learned in United Nations. I also work on updating our new internet with web pages.
I applied because I always wanted to work at the international organization, and I've graduated this May from my university, so I wanted to gain useful experience working with international law and investment law.
I'm the graphic design intern, so my tasks range from creating graphics for the human resources portal or creating brochures. I wanted to gain more experience and work with an organization that helps so many people.
My job is more about like cost-benefit analysis to help like UN staff to work more efficiently and effectively. Yes.
From my time at United Nations, I learned that it is up to myself to decide what I can and cannot achieve. My advice for future candidate would be don't wait out. Have a purpose for your time at the United Nations. Always know why you started out at the United Nations and why you're involved in a project you're involved in. And don't be afraid to reach out to people. People at the United Nations were once in your shoes and they're always willing to help you out.
आओ हमारे साथ काम करो.
和我们一起工作.
Trabajen con nosotros.
Работайте с нами.
Work with us.
一緒に働きましょう.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Christina. So I think this video really shows already very well, like what is the kind of motivation that people bring into the internships and at the time at the United Nations. And also, I think it shows very good how diverse really also the people are that work within this organization, which makes it also that inspiring and beneficial in the end. I can truly also talk about my experience here. So now I would like to quickly jump more into the more administrative points. So that will be specifically interesting for all of you when you try to apply or you're applying for the internship positions. So first of all, when it comes to the application period, I can highly recommend look into the specific requirements and information about each position because it really varies depending on the division itself. You can find all the information necessary on our careers website, and I'll come to back to that in a second. But really check out exactly when the application periods will be. Then the applications itself, they must be submitted fully online, and you can see the link to our careers portal right behind it. To be honest, if you just Google careers at the United Nations, you will also end up on this website. There's great opportunities to also pre-select certain levels, for example. So if you're just interested in internship positions, you can pre-select them and really get a great overview on which positions they are open and you can apply for. How about the selection period? So this is approximately 2 months, which is comparatively actually a short period of time, which is great. And it gives you also more higher flexibility. Talking about higher flexibility also when it comes to starting dates. And that's very beneficial if you want to find a sweet spot for yourself, but also from the recruiting office side, because this can really be coordinated individually. What are some required skills that we're looking out for? And this obviously depends specifically on the position itself. But when you talk about it very broadly and in general, first of all, the academic and analytical skills that are surely part of our work every day. And the second aspect are language skills. And I will come back to that point in a second on the next slide as well. But as you can see, English is definitely something that's very beneficial. Also talking about myself, I just wanted to point that out maybe too. I know that some people are always afraid, okay, maybe English is not my first language, isn't it, by the way, for me either. But you can also just grow into it and you'll get better and better. So don't worry about that too much. And the last two aspects, and I think they were specifically important since you work in such a diverse and international organization, and you will certainly work with teammates that were sitting all over the world, is really clear, and the communication aspect, and also interpersonal skills. And I would even say when it comes to interpersonal skills, also from an intercultural perspective. So that's certainly a great benefit. Last but not least, before to jump into the internship certificate, we also receive a lot of questions when it comes to online internships. So basically also, can you do it, for example, remote? And yeah, we have opportunities currently available. Why we wanted to point that out too is that sometimes people are worried because they might have to move from a city to a total new one. We just mentioned, for example, from Southeast Asia, for example, to New York, but that's not the case. You can also do it fully remote. So that's a great option we have today with the technology. Just wanted to point that out. And last but not least, regarding the internship certificate, this is also, of course, very beneficial for your long-term career, and this will be issued upon completion. And before jumping into the next slide very quickly, because Amelia already mentioned it before, we also have, as you can see on the top right corner, a job opening specifically for our great team. Feel free to check it out. It's the job job number 160555. It is, just as a quick information, rather broadly described on the position itself. But if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to any of us that you get to know today. And also on the last slide, when we were talking about the Q&A section, there's also the email address specifically for our talent outreach. So feel free to send us an email if you have questions, and we're very happy to answer them as quickly as possible. Next slide, Christina. Thank you. Now, last but not least, quickly, I would like to talk a little bit about eligibility, which is, of course, also a very important point. So first of all, internships are usually always full-time, which is really also making sure that you take the most out of your time within the United Nations. Then a very important point is that you have to enroll in the final year of your bachelor's degree or beyond in order to join us. So for all of you out there that might just have started their bachelor's degree, you still have some time to also get the overview, as we mentioned also in the discussion before, see which kind of areas you might be interested, and then apply for the internship positions and having a great time. Then, as also mentioned, the language aspect, the language skills. So fluency in English or French is usually a must. And this is just important for us to be sure that we can communicate with everyone. And as you can see, for example, in our team, we're using English every day. And last but not least, two more aspects. So the duration is always between 2 and 6 months. That also makes sure that you really take the most out of your time and you're here for long enough to really understand how the processes work, how the teams work. And last but not least, the internships are still unpaid, but that's a very important point because they're actually working on it right now, and highly potential that this might change in the very near future. So yeah, that's about that. And now I would like to hand it over to Mahmoud, and he will talk a little bit more about the Young Professional Program, or as we call it, YPP.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for your presentation about the internship section. And as we saw until now, and we'll see more later, there are many ways to get into the United Nations. And I'm excited to talk about this opportunity, Young Professional Program, because I got into the United Nations throughout this program. But before I start, please watch with me only 1 minute video, and then we will go more into details. Please, Christina.
Hello and welcome to the United Nations Young Professionals Program introduction video. The UN Young Professionals Program is a recruitment initiative for talented, highly qualified professionals to start a career as an international civil servant with the UN Secretariat. It consists of an entrance examination process and professional development once those successful start their career with the UN. Each year, countries that are or underrepresented in the United Nations are invited to take part in YPP. Only nationals of those countries are eligible to apply for the exam. In order to be eligible to apply, you need to hold the nationality of a participating country, must have at least a first-level university degree relevant for the exam, a relevant bachelor's degree, or a 3-year equivalent degree, be 32 years old or younger in the year of the examination, and be fluent in either English or French. The YPP exams are held once a year in different subject areas, depending on the needs of the UN. The application period typically opens in June each year, and finally, candidates that are successful in the YPP exam process will be placed on a roster, which is used to fill entry-level professional vacancies across the UN Secretariat over a 3-year period. For more information, please visit the YPP careers page at careers.un.org/YPP and follow the official UN careers pages on social media. Hello and welcome to
So this was a quick introduction to this program. And as the video did, I want to re-emphasize about that this program is a unique, like having some additional criteria concerning the nationalities and the age limit that you will not find in a regular job opening. And we will go with the details in the next slide. But here is the overview of the general YPP process, beginning from the searching for the website, YPP page, and learning more about the criteria, and then applying throughout the platform called Inspira. And in this application, you enter many information about yourself, including the nationality, the age, the language level. And I want to make sure to know that this is an important stage, because if you insert some wrong information, you might not be able to go to the next stage. For example, I shared from experience for the language requirement. So the United Nations require to be fluent in English, for example. So if you, by mistake, didn't mention that you are fluent in English, even if you are fluent in English, you will not be able to go to the next stage, whatever the education level you have or the experience you have. So make sure you insert the information correctly. Next, after the application is screened and you are into the next stage, which is you will be invited to do the examination process. In my case, it was 2 examination. One is multiple choice exam, and the second is a written exam. And before that, you will be sent a set of or a package of reading material that will help you prepare for this exam. And don't worry about it. It's mainly something related to the intermediate level of the major you are doing in the university. For example, I applied throughout the economic affair category, and the exam was mainly in the microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, something like that, an intermediate level. So as long as you prepare well, you will be fine in the exam. And if you pass the 2 examination, you will be invited to the last stage, which is participating in competency behavioral interview. And the more you prepare, the more your chance you will pass this interview. And please keep in mind while preparation that the United Nations does not charge any fees at any point of the young professional program process. So be aware of profit companies out there offering services related to this program that are not supported or endorsed by the United Nations organization. And finally, if you pass the interview stage, it's not now guaranteed that you get the job into the United Nations. You are placed on something called roster. And success in this stage means that you will be placed there for 3 years. And within 3 years, if you don't get the job, you have to apply again, but be optimistic that you will get the job there. So success in the young professional program is different from success in applying to a traditional job opening. So those who are on the roster need to fill certain kind of vacancy specifically open for them. And I'm gonna share my experience. It took 2 years for me until I got into the roster, and only 8 months until I was appointed from the roster. Unlike Christina, she took 1 year to pass this process, but it took her like 2 years until she got appointed from the roster. So just do your part and be optimistic about that. And while you are waiting, try building up your skills and what's needed inside the job category you are applying to. So next slide, please. Yeah. So now this is an important slide because it lists the basic eligibility criteria for you. Just to reiterate, only nationals from certain country, mainly the under and non-represented country, can participate, and it's changeable from year to year. For example, I applied in 2017 because Syrian was allowed to apply, but in 2018, for example, I couldn't. So I waited until 2019 in order to reapply for this program. Regarding the age, only individuals that are 32 years old and younger are able to participate. This program was introduced as a way to strengthen the workforce of the United Nations and to help improve their representation balance. So that's really where the nationality and age criteria come in, as those specifically the mandate of the Young Professional Program. And then we have education. So a first level university degree in the area that is relevant to the exam. So what that's referring to is each year there are different subject areas that are included in the exam. And in the job opening information you can find online, you will see the main courses of study that are accepted for that exam. So you can apply if you see that you are fit or you are interested in that job or exam category. And then we reach the language criteria. You have to be fluent in English or French. Please indicate fluency, as I just mentioned, in the application process in order to be invited to the next stage. Lastly, I just want to share with you that there is no need to previous experience to apply to this program, because mainly getting into the United Nations, you have to have like a master degree and 2 years of experience, or even bachelor degree, but with a decent amount of experience. But for this program, no experience needed, and you can apply only with your bachelor degree. Yeah, next, please. So the next application is coming soon. We are not sure when will open exactly, but it's coming soon later this year. And you will know more about the eligible country you can that can participate in the program. And always I advise you to search for this program, to read more about it in the links provided in this presentation. And there are many stories shared online about this program. And again, and I want to finish with this, just believe in yourself and that you can get there. And one word I will leave with you: prepare, prepare, and prepare. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mahmoud. Yes, for the deadline, please follow us on social media or check that page that you see linked at the bottom later this year, so you can you get the most important and the most up-to-date updates there. So I'll pass it over to Sujong to talk to us about the JPO program. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Christina. It's my great pleasure to present you about the JPO program as a JPO myself. I'm going to go through the overview of the JPO program. so what the program is about, how the process works, and who can participate and how. So through a JPO program is a program for young professionals to acquire hands-on experience on UN through learning experience and contribute to the mandate of the UN organization, particularly the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda. And actually, it's a bilateral agreement between the UN and the donor countries. And generally, it's from the funding is coming from the donor countries, but some donors finance nationals of some developing countries as well. So you might want to check this out. And a lot of member states currently sponsor this program. And once you're selected, you'll become either P1 or P2 level. And then you'll get to work in diverse area of expertise in different departments or offices within the UN system. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the JPO program, you do need a master's degree or equivalent degree plus 2 years of relevant professional experience. Or if you don't have master's degree, you can have additional 2 years of work experience, which makes it 4 years of minimum work experience with your bachelor's degree, right? And well, English or French is a UN official language. So if you speak one of them, you can apply, and it's a great asset if you also speak another UN official language, right? And there's an age limit, so depending on it depends on the donor country, but it's usually under 32 years old. Slide. Okay, so depending on the hiring entity, some might require you to apply through Inspira or another platform, or you might have to submit your application by email sometimes through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or agencies. So either through an online application or like email submission, you'll get to prepare the UN personal history profile. It's either PHP or P11 form, and you can actually easily find this form on Google. In addition, you'll need to write a cover letter or motivational statement where you explain why you're applying for this job at this particular location at this moment, and how the position aligns with your career goal, and how the elements of your personal character of experience will support success in your role. And how your competencies, values, and behavior align with the mandate of the UN and the mandate of the particular office that you're applying to. All right, so as a JPO myself, I think this is a great entry point and getting supported by sponsors by your government. So I'm involved now in many exciting projects, and I can only recommend you to participate in this amazing program. So if you are interested, please visit this website. You see the link here and learn more about it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sujong, and I had to find the unmute button because I'll be speaking to you next about consultancies. I'll keep it very short and very sweet. These are very straightforward. This is the United Nations way of frequently, just engaging experts under individual contracts to work on short-term projects. So as a consultant, you would be a recognized, authority or specialist in a specific field, and you would be engaged in projects on a consultative capacity, right? So results oriented very often, and it could involve analyzing problems or finding solutions or preparing, certain conferences or events or writing certain reports on your area of expertise. So very, very specific projects, right? So in terms of how to apply for these, we do invite you to create a personal history profile. We call it a PHP. It's basically a record of your experience and expertise. You do that in Inspira, our online system. And then you register for a consultant roster, which is a list of all available consultants. And it shows us that you are available for consideration when these opportunities rise. And please make sure to keep that updated regularly as you build more experience or get more degrees. Updated in the system too, because if Inspira shows that you haven't updated your profile for over a few years, then you're less likely to be contacted, right? It just kind of makes sense. And just to say that the location of assignments could be at various UN duty stations, any regional country or project office around the world. You can either be contacted by the relevant hiring manager from that team that needs a consultant, or you can apply to the consultancy yourself. You will see on our job portal job openings that are marked as a consultancy. So you're welcome to apply yourself, or you're welcome to place yourself on a roster so that you can be contacted when a relevant project comes up. So that's basically it for consultancies. The link is down there at the bottom of this slide. It's a kind of an ugly link, so don't feel like you have to write it down now. We will definitely provide you these materials, like I said. But that's it for me, and then I'll pass it on now to Andreina, who will talk about the UNV program.
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you so much, everyone. So now I'm going to be talking about the United Nations volunteers. And last but not least, it's a wonderful program to start your career in the UN. Last year, 2021, they celebrated 50 years. It was established in 1971 by the UN General as a development partner focusing on volunteering. It was the mandate to deploy UN volunteers and promote voluntarism in the UN. Can we move to the next slide so we can learn a little more about it? Is it moving? We have UN volunteers around the world, and they are diverse as the UN system. The average is 34 years, and they have 10,000 UN volunteers a year. So UNV offers opportunities in very different categories. 80% of the UNV volunteers are specialists, but 10% are youth volunteers, and 10% are also national UN volunteers that are community volunteers. And then there is a very new option that is called online volunteers. That is a wonderful opportunity to start right away, that you can do it online, and you can do it like 1 week or 2 week projects, and it's an excellent opportunity to start today. I, for example, hired once an online volunteer to work as a graphic designer for me. And that person worked for me 2 weeks on a specific project, and it was a wonderful opportunity. I would highly encourage you all to apply, to take a look at the rosters. It's an excellent opportunity to get experience in the field and to start networking also in the UN. Next slide. The entitlements. So all the UN volunteers, they have an entry lump sum. The travel tickets are covered. They have a monthly allowance. This is very important because many people, they associate the word volunteers with gratis personnel. So when I used to work in UNV, and the first question was, is it paid or is it unpaid? So yes, is it paid? And depending on the country that you are, it could be a good salary. You have also insurance and medical and life and disability insurance, and also you have annual leave, and you have access to training and to programs, and you also have home visit that is a long-term assignment. And you have also an exit allowance that is 225 per month. So it's a very, very good way to start your career in the UN. And I have to share with you my experience. I used to work with UNV many, many years ago, and many of the UNVs that I offer them a contract to go to Africa for 2 years. They are now directors in country offices and so on. They have very, very successful careers. Next slide. Okay, so this is the talent pool. We have an initiative with a talent pool. When you create your profile in UN Careers, you have the opportunity to register to our talent pool. Anyone can register. It's very quick and very simple. When you create your profile, you're gonna see on the right side, on the bottom of the UN Careers, the opportunity to apply to the talent pool. We will highly encourage you to do so we can have you of being part of our talent pool. Here you can see the link to it at the very bottom.
And I will put it in the chat as well.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, so it's very important. So now I'm gonna hand over to Annalie, I think, right? ESCAP is gonna be taking the mic. Thank you so much, and we're gonna open now the sessions for Q&As. I hope you find it very useful. I know it's a lot of information, but we're gonna be sharing this presentation, so you can go and listen to us again and apply. My recommendation is apply, apply, and apply. So now let's open the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Andreina. Thank you all for having us. You've been wonderful, wonderful audience. And I think we actually already have some questions that we've been compiling from the chat. And then if we go through these and have a few minutes left over, you know, if there's anyone else that would like to unmute and go on video and say hi and ask a question, we can do it that way too. But I know that we have some from the chat. Should I go ahead and start reading them out? I'll compile them in terms of topical. Perfect. Thank you. So I think we have 2 questions on the YPP. So thank you very much, Mahmoud, for presenting us the YPP. I think you've already touched on some of these questions. I can take the first one. It's very quick. In terms of nationality, someone asked, what if you have a nationality in one country, but have lived in another country your whole life and have permanent residency there? So unfortunately for the YPP, permanent residency does not qualify you with that list of the participating countries. It has to be a nationality in that country. And that's because the YPP was envisioned as a program to rejuvenate, on the one hand, the workforce of the Secretariat and bring more young people in, like all of us. And on the other hand, it was a program to improve geographical representation, which Mahmoud talked to you about a little bit earlier in our panel discussion. It's a very important aspect of our diversity initiatives to make sure that all 193 member states are properly represented in the staff of the Secretariat. So that's why the nationality requirement is a big piece of the YPP there. So not permanent residency, nationality. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you need more clarification. And then the other question on the YPP was just to elaborate a little bit more on the examination. So Mahmoud, I don't know what your experience was. You talked a little bit about it already, but maybe we can mention also that they give us, you know, reading materials ahead of the exam. Did you receive reading materials, Mahmoud? I remember I did.
Yeah, I received reading materials and sample test. I received reading materials and a sample test.
Yes, so the sample questions were
and
helpful.
as I mentioned before, don't worry about it. It's something like similar to intermediate level exam in the university, whatever the subject. I applied into economic affairs, and I just felt it's intermediate level, so nothing difficult. It's not easy, to be honest, but it's not that difficult.
Yeah, I think the hardest part was the time limit. There's a time limit on the test, and some of them are written and some of them are multiple choice. And if you had all the time in the world, it would be a very easy test, but they limit you so that way you can kind of prove your how fast you can, type up briefs or notes under pressure and things like that, which I thought was really cool. I took it as a cool, fun exercise. So don't be intimidated by the YPP exam, basically. Do you agree on that, Mahmoud?
Yeah, for sure. I think just believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you can ace it. Yeah.
That's the theme. And thank you very much for answering that. So I'll move into the internship questions. There's a YPP question in the chat, actually. So before I go to internship, let me answer that quickly. The question is, among the people who have passed the YPP, what is the percentage that can eventually get a position? So everyone that passes the YPP and gets to that final interview stage gets on the roster, like Mahmoud mentioned earlier. So 100% of them get on the roster when they pass. And I believe I've been told that most within the 3 years, most actually just get placed in a position. It's just that it might not be immediate, like Mahmoud. For me, it took a longer time. It took almost 2 years. I think COVID really slowed things down, to be honest. But you are expected to get a position off that roster within the 3 years. So let's see, internship related questions here. Let's see, there was a question, I believe, or maybe a few about intern contracts and the restrictions as to the positions you can apply to right after your contract ends. So I think there's a 6-month period. Andreina, you probably know the most about this. Like to take this one, or Amelia, or Nicolas, because you're our interns, have you read up on this and want to explain this one? Basically, the question is it possible to apply for a second position in the same organization right after the intern contract ends? As far as I know, that's a no. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a 6-month waiting period.
Usually
Yes, Andreina,
you have to wait. Yes, so usually if you work, you are an intern with the secretariat, you have to wait 6 months. But you can move to a consultancy in agencies, funds, and programs, for example. Or you can become a UMV. Or you can, yes. So if you want to take a position in the secretariat after having an internship in the secretariat, you have to take 6 months break. But we are a very mobile organization, and we have so many opportunities. So you can move right away to an agency, funds, and programs, the specialized agencies, like, for example, UNICEF, UNDP, World Food Program, and so on. And then you can come back after the 6 months to the secretariat.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And along those lines, there's also a question about internship pay, because interns currently at the Secretariat are unpaid, right? We all know that. And so we try our hardest to repay our interns in networking opportunities and and interview guidance or prep, and just kind of like guiding them through job application processes after the internship, right? But I do know that the pay is a very limiting factor, and especially in terms of D&I, so we are working on that at the moment. I think a few agencies have already started paying interns. Could you remind me which ones those are? I think
yes, they are some agencies
or UN Women,
that,
I think, offers a
yes, Yeah, and UNICEF, they started to pay, and we are very happy about it. We are working very hard to change that, right? But now the good thing is, since you can do the internships remotely, you don't have to move, right? So you don't have to pay a rent, or you don't have to move to the duty station. You can do it remotely, and you can do it part-time or full-time. So this is really great, and it's a great opportunity. It's one of the only good things about the pandemic, that you can work, do the internships remotely, and we can work remotely, right? But we are working on trying to get to pay for the internships. We are constantly trying to work on that, and agencies, funds, and programs already started paying. So this is good news.
And just to build on that, we do have a quick handout where you will see the career portals of other agencies, funds, and programs. So I mentioned UN Women. There's Mahmoud mentioned UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees earlier, UNICEF, all of these UNDP. We have a handout with all of their career portals, so you can go directly there and check with them as well. So you'll receive that after our call. And I think Annalena put in the chat an excerpt of the reasoning for the break in service after the internship, so you can go ahead and take a look at that if you're interested. I do see WFP, FAO, so a lot of the agencies do have paid internships. There's a technical question, maybe Andrina can take this one, a technical question that just came in the chat about this internship break. Can you apply to positions within those 6 months, or can you start applying after the 6 months end?
Well, since the time it takes a long time to get recruited, you can start applying, right? Because by the time you get contact, maybe it's already passed. Right?
Yep. Cool. Thank you for answering, Andrina. Yes, it does take some time. There are a lot of processes in place behind the scenes that you might not see as an applicant that allow us to ensure fairness for everyone. So it could take a few months, you know, even up to 6 months. So that's a really good idea to start preparing. And in fact, we encourage our interns to do that. While they're still interning with us, we help them start applying, right? So. Perfect. Am I missing any questions? Does anyone want to jump in with any others? I'm sure there's a lot of activity in the chat, so I'm sure I may have missed some. Maybe on the social media. We do have social media pages. We will link them in there. And we actually, for any of you that have background in science, technology, engineering, or math, STEM, right? We have an event coming up next week on LinkedIn. I can link that here as well if anyone is interested. It's co-organized with other agencies, funds, and programs, and we'll be sharing more about careers in STEM at the UN. A common misconception is that you have to be an international politics or international relations graduate to work here, but we look for a wide variety of backgrounds, including engineers and statisticians and data analysts and, even graphic designers and even doctors and nurses. And we have all kinds of backgrounds that we need. So if that's interesting to you, I'll drop the link in the chat on social media too, to keep finding out about these career events too. Let's see. I have a question on the UNV program, whether, oh, go ahead.
No, I wanted to come back to the internship program, because I saw earlier that Heike had a question on doing another internship in the UN. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit on, is that possible if you're already doing an internship in the UN Secretariat to maybe switch positions, switch the office, what the eligibility criteria is there?
Yes, it's my understanding that it has the same 6-month break in service rule to switch from one internship to another within the Secretariat. But I think if you go to an agency, fund, and program and do an internship, for example, at UN Women or UNDP, that doesn't apply anymore. It's just within the Secretariat.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you. Yes, and I see questions on UNV, which I love. I love questions on UNV. Let me share this slide again that had the various UNV opportunities. I know we're running short on, but the questions are, about working experience and whether or not we need a bachelor experience.
Can I take this one?
For the UNV?
Yeah, so for
Yeah,
UNV,
and
it's depending on the category, right? For UNV expert volunteers, you need a master's degree and you need at least 5 years of work experience. So it depends. You have the UN youth volunteers, you also have the online one and the UN community volunteer. So there is an opportunity for everyone. And for example, with basic education, you could do the UN community volunteer, right? And also the online volunteer. So it depends. When you go to the slide that Christina showed you, you have a very good overview.
Yes, definitely. So the answer to the question is you don't need a bachelor for some of the categories of volunteers, yes. Right? So
yeah, for the specialists, you need a master's degree, right?
Let's see. We put the link in the chat for our LinkedIn event on science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We have a question on getting in touch with us. I think LinkedIn would be the best option there as well. On LinkedIn, Andreina is always posting opportunities, so many opportunities, especially for youth. We're very passionate about that. So feel free to follow us there. What is the timeline for YPP? Oh gosh, so many questions. If we don't get to your question today, please feel free to email us at talentoutreach@un.org. I'll put that in the chat. I know here's our email. It goes directly to our team. And you can feel free to ask us there. And Gabby and Flavia and Annalena, cut us off, please. Whenever I could keep answering questions all day, I think all of us could. So please let us know. I think we're getting close to time here.
Christina, I think we can still take a few more questions for 2-3 more minutes, and then we go to the closing of the event. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. So I think I have a question on the YPP timeline, which could be quick. I'll try to keep it quick. It's usually in the summer. I think it used to be very regularly in the summer, around July or August, that the applications were due. But with COVID, timelines got switched and delayed, and then brought back up. So for example, this year, the application deadline was in February of 2022. So and the next one will be announced later in Q4, the last quarter of this year. So September or October, November, or December, it will be announced. So, and it usually stays open for about a month, maybe a little bit more, and then you apply, and then the exam happens a few months after that. It all depends, For me, it was 2 months after, but I heard for other YPPs it was 4 months after that the first exam was scheduled. So I think I put it in the chat. It's a program that you have to be very passionate about, and you have to kind of have a long-term outlook on your career in the UN. You be patient and determined and believe in yourself, and keep moving through it, because it's not a regular job opening that you just apply, interview, and start. And I see a question on the professional certification, but not a bachelor degree. So maybe a cybersecurity or data management or project management certification. Andreina, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would need the bachelor degree if that's minimum requirement in the job opening, right? So definitely go by what the job opening says. I see you nodding, Andreina. So yeah, I think that's accurate there. And I'm scrolling, but I think that's all of our questions for now. Do we pass it back to you, Flavia?
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, everyone. Really, I mean, I wish I had this session back then. So it's fantastic to see all this. And we managed to reply to all the questions. So perfect timing. I know that it's a lot to process for all of you. You've been bombarded with a lot of information, also personal information. And so no worries. We'll be sharing the presentation and the recording by email, so you can rewatch it, recheck all the links if you haven't copied them from our chat yet. Also, I wanted just to share a personal tip. I've seen all different backgrounds. I started my career as a consultant, but the most important thing, I think, is that when you apply, you tailor your application to that position. Because too many times as a recruiter, have seen applications coming in that were clearly generic, clearly for any position in the UN, clearly not for our team. And that's something really I would advise you not to do. Tailor it to that position. In your motivation letter, mention the position you're applying for and why you're the best fit or a good fit for that position. Really make the recruiter feel this person has applied to this job opening. So that's one simple tip, but it can really make you stand out. And also, I think, do not hesitate to use social media to connect with us on LinkedIn, follow the different UN agencies pages, because there we post jobs. So LinkedIn is really a great place to see all that, as we've discussed. And I would also like to echo what all the colleagues today have said. Be determined, you can make it, we made it, you can make it. So really, just get engaged, and also get engaged with UN events such as APFSD. It's an example of a networking opportunity, an opportunity to stand out, an opportunity to understand better the work of the UN. So that's also very important that you follow also the activities, because you need to understand what is the work of the UN to then say, yes, I want to work for this organization. And then I would say, last but not least, as in the UN, we do not only look for profiles or backgrounds, we look for people. And that's so important, because when you will have your motivation letter or you will be having your interview, try to, I know you will be stressed, but try to let come out your personality, your people skills. We will look at you as a team member. Do I see this person in my team? So remember, try to be as natural as you can, because personality and people skills are really relevant to us. And finally, I just want to thank you, every single participant today, for making it. I know here in the Asia Pacific side, it's quite late on a Friday night. So thank you so much. And I want also to thank you, the New York team, for this fantastic collaboration, work, presentation, facilitation. You really made it super interesting, even for us that we are already in the UN. And I wish you all the best from the innovation team. We will keep in touch for the next opportunities, and we will keep on engaging with youth across the Asia Pacific region. Thank you very much, everyone, and I wish you a nice weekend. Bye.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks so
Lovely
much.
to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
A great weekend.
Same to you all.
Bye-bye all.